Good morning, everyone.
So in about 2 minutes, we'll get started, okay? Good morning. I feel like I'm on Romper Room.
Good morning, Miss Julie.
Julie, you might be aware, but we have about 42 connected now, so you can wait another minute if you'd like, but
Say that again, Lisa.
we have 42 people connected. If whenever you're ready, if you want to wait another minute or two, you can. But there's 41 now, so it looks like we have a good amount of people connected.
Okay,
It's up to you.
we'll get started if Jeff's ready. Okay, good morning. I'm Julie Green, the current chairperson of the General Policy Board and Trumbull County Planning Commission Director. Welcome to the new year. Happy New Year. First policy board meeting of 2021. And we'll begin with our committee summary reports. So starting with Gary Schaefer, our Technical Advisory Committee Chairperson.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Chairwoman. Since the last General Policy Board meeting, Technical Advisory Committee meetings were held in November, December, and earlier this month in January. Some of the programs and topics discussed at these meetings were the fiscal year 2020 planning grant, the post-construction time and delay study for the 5 Points roundabout, the Odot District 4 US 224 safety study, and the local road safety program update. Also, the safe routes to schools, the new application period, the new additions and updates to Eastgate's webpage, which include an updated funding page, which includes all of the program funding available, and applications, due dates, and requirements, the 2020 census, and the broadband feasibility grant. Also, how Public Works Commission activities were presented and public transit updates were discussed. So you can see there were a lot of work continued throughout this COVID pandemic last year. Reoccurring topics included the Clean Ohio Program funding round 15, as well as the fiscal year 2021 through 24 Transportation Improvement Program and the ARC program. And lastly, nominations and elections for the 2021 TAC officers were held earlier this month at the January meeting, with myself being reelected as the chair and Bob Durbin elected as the vice chair. General Policy Board resolutions reviewed and approved by the committee were General Policy Board Resolution 33 through 35-2020, which were all intergovernmental review resolutions. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Next, we have the Citizens Advisory Board minutes or reports. Justin Mondock.
Great. My name's Samantha Yanucci. I'm actually going to be giving the report. But yeah, I'm new here. I'm the Mahoning County representative for the State Citizen Advisory Board. So since the last General Policy Board meeting, the Citizens Advisory Board met virtually in November, December, and in January. In November, Eastgate's Transportation Director Ken Simpson discussed an overview and the results of Eastgate's 2020 TMA certification review. Stephen Zubik, Eastgate's TIP manager, also provided a summary of the transportation funding programs that the agency offers to the local communities. In December, the Citizens Advisory Board was given an update on the agency's economic development recovery programs by Mike Tripko. I also apologize if I'm butchering all of these names. Hopefully with time I'll learn them. The Coronavirus Economic Recovery Coordinator, and James Dignan, the Disaster Recovery Coordinator. An update on the upcoming funding round for the agency's planning grant was also provided by Justin Mundak. Following the December meeting, the 13 applications for 2021 CAB membership were approved. And then the last meeting in January, the Citizens Advisory Board hosted Eastgate Executive Director Jim Kinnick for an agency update and outlook for the upcoming year. And at this meeting, the board also selected the members to hold the roles of chair, vice chair, and policy board representatives. During this period, there were no resolutions for the CAB to review. And this concludes the report of the Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you, Samantha. I apologize. I had Justin on my agenda, so I'll make that change. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So up next is the finance. Does anybody have any questions for Samantha before we move on? Okay, up next is the Finance Executive Committee. Jim Kinnick, the Executive Director, will provide an overview of that committee.
Great, thank you, Julie. The Finance Executive Committee held their quarterly meeting this morning. We held it prior to the General Policy Board. At that meeting, the current financial report and financial status as of January 15, 2021 was reviewed by the committee and approved. The finance report reflects balances in the following agency accounts: roughly $445,000 in our checking operating budget checking account, $451,000 in our savings and annuity plan, roughly $3.7 million in our project account, and the agency has outstanding invoices that total around $200,000. So you can see we're in a strong financial shape, and we're very excited about the opportunities to continue to track money for projects and be able to hold and move money through. That was a significant increase and continues to be, as this agency is very aggressive in looking for other opportunities to bring resources to this region. That concludes the finance report, Chairperson Green.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Okay, next up, we have our business meeting, the executive director report, again, Jim Kinnick.
Thank you again, Julie. First, I would like to just continue to thank our members for the support through these difficult times. We've been, as you know, this agency's been working since the pandemic, as other agencies have been. So certainly, we're very thankful that the staff has been able to find those accommodations and continue to be successful and continue to deliver our very aggressive program. Want to thank everybody for participating in our meetings and thank Gary for leading our attack and Justin and welcome Samantha to the CAB. We've been continuing to hold those meetings monthly as we do with our finance executive and our general policy being quarterly, but trying to conduct business as usual during these very challenging times. And we hopefully can see the light at the end of that tunnel, and we'll have more people back in this room in hopefully a few short months. But I did want to thank everybody for their support. What I'd like to do today is kind of run through, it's sort of like a summary of where we've been in 2021 as an agency, 2020 as an agency, then just kind of touch on some of the initiatives that we're looking at in 2021. The work we're going to put up, Jeff, can you flip us to the next screen? What this kind of summarizes is work, projects, and initiatives in addition to the normal programs that go through this agency. This is certainly a result of the effort from the entire staff, but I'd certainly like to preface it by this is work that's been asked of the staff in addition to the normal programs they deliver, in addition to the OPWC, in addition to transportation projects or the art program. These are other initiatives that we challenge the staff to be aggressive on and look for opportunities to help the communities. This is a summary, like I said, we sent this out, so you had a hard copy. I'm just going to touch on a few. I don't want to get into every one. I can certainly give more explanation if anybody has any specific questions. But when we look back into calendar year 2020, we kind of phrase it as over $33 million invested in new construction projects that are underway in 2020. The bulk of that being finally the Smart 2 corridor. Shouldn't say finally. We've been pushed very hard to get it to this point, but to break ground on that this past spring, we're in construction on 5th Avenue. That's a $30 million effort. Phase 2 will start construction this spring. The Struthers Dam removals is under Joanne's leadership, has continued to move its way upstream, and the removal of the Struthers Dam will go underway this year. As kind of was authorized last year, we'll move into total reconstruction this calendar year. And then we're pleased the City of Youngstown and the assist the City of Youngstown with the Mahoning Avenue Bikeway project. It'll go from downtown Youngstown to Mill Creek Park. When we look at some of the projects in development, we're excited about we talked about the Trumbull 46A2 interchange, the Trumbull 46 Market Street intersection that's actually going to have a virtual public meeting here in the near future. Western Reserve Road widening been funded, that'll widen Western Reserve Road from 680 to Market Street. Mahoning 224 safety corridor is being looked at in development. And now we've just recently heard that the Youngstown dams have been funded, so we got a $6 million project to take the 3 Youngstown dams out. As we can continue to move upstream, Warren Dam's another $3.2 million in development. And then the Lord's House Smart Logistics Hub that we put in for a bill grant, a $30 million ask, is also out there.
Jim, what's the funding source for Youngstown Dams?
Youngstown Dams, Joanne, that would be WRSP funding, pays for half of that.
And LTV, two together, yes.
The what, Joanne?
LTV.
The LTV, that'll be the remaining share of the LTV funds paid for the other half of the Youngstown Dams. What I really want to call attention to is this agency was fortunate enough to attract additional grant money, and we're authorized is these third part down where you talk about the grants awarded. The EDA CARES Act Recovery awarded this agency $400,000, and that was able to again bring on the Disaster Recovery Coordinator, the Corona Economic Recovery Coordinator, and additional money for a task order that we hope to have up and running here in the near future to assist communities with grant writing. It's also, we finally moved into really an aggressive portion of our GM Economic Recovery Plan through YSU. That culminated in the REDS Regional Economic Diversification Summit this past September, and findings from their study will be made available early this spring. I can tell you that that time, investment, direction is certainly going to pay dividends as we move into 2021. And then the agency through ARC received a power grant of $1.5 million that'll be utilized for the conduit on the smart corridor to bring the ability to connect and upgrade the high-speed internet from Mercy Health to YSU through the urbanized area downtown Youngstown. So when we look at those grants, 2.7, almost $2.8 million additional money brought in through grants. And most of those grants carry administrative fees to help us mobilize and enact those. And the agency was looking at $136,000 annually for the next 3 years to move those grants forward and to make a difference. Some of the initiatives, and again, I don't want to cover them all, but I think there's a couple that need to be pointed out. Eastgate was noted last month as part of the Communities of Excellence and received recognition. It's a Malcolm Baldridge program nationwide that identifies communities. Really, the spirit of that is working together efficiently. We work with the Port Authority, Youngstown State, the Chamber, and other agencies to move the area forward. Philanthropy, certainly, with the foundations to work together as one, formalize an action plan and a vision, and be able to act on that vision as one. It's a 3-year journey. We completed the first year, and challenging certainly as we went through this past year with the pandemic, but we're moving towards year 2 here, and that's under the leadership of Mike Ribko as part of our organization also. As I just look at some of those initiatives, again, it's important to continue to point out that the recovery coordinator with James Dignan and the economic recovery coordinator Mike Ribko certainly added value to this agency. They've been out in many of the communities and certainly are making a difference in some of our efforts here as we continue to try to recover and get back on our feet, part of the revitalization. The Lordstown Smart Logistics Hub Grant we put in for in 2020 when we're not successful. Learned a lot, but most importantly, we get ourselves right back up and continue the effort as we move forward. We'll look to continue to track money for that effort, and I got some other stuff I'll share in 2021 as we move forward to help make that reality. And then we're very proud that we're able to work under with the Trumbull County Transit Board, WRTA, to move towards a regionalized transit system. WRTA has been extended to Trumbull County, and that's been a long time waiting. A bus should stop at a county line. That'll connect these communities like they need to be with a very efficient transit system. So that's a look at 2021. If I could, I'd like to just share in the new year some of the initiatives we're looking at. Again, there's a little more detail here. I do this for myself to kind of just continue to keep us on task and align our efforts. But again, I think a year-end summary and a vision as we share for the agency with our members is important. Off the bat, number one is that we're involved in the strategic analysis of our agency, and that's, again, I tell everybody we look for opportunities to get better. We're engaging a consulting firm to take a look at how we operate, what we're going to do, how we can align, how we can get better. Are there deficiencies? Are there overlaps? Or are there things we're missing? So it's an 8-week process that will take place here, and I would expect to present some of those findings at our General Policy Board in April. The Ohio Smart Mobility Summit had to get postponed like everything else in 2020. 2021 is challenging, and we set the sights for 2022. Got a firm commitment from Tribe Ohio to continue to host that in Youngstown. We think with some of the recent successes and investment in the GM, from GM out in Lordstown and Lordstown Motors and LG Chem, and hopefully continue to grow that effort. The timing in 2022 probably aligns better for everything that we're trying to make with that summit. Unfortunately, next to his annual meetings, we postponed that. We're looking internally to move that to a fall event, assuming we can get everybody together. And then number 4, I just want to talk that we're going to start semi-annual legislative days. I think we just want to, when we have the ability to bring people together for meetings, we'd look to have something like that in May and then November. There's another, if I just kind of skip a few, down to number 7, we're establishing a grant writing task force for members. That's an RFP that's on the board. I believe today's the last day for it. We're looking for consulting help. Part of that CARES Act money that was given to this agency allowed for us to invest in a consultant that would be able to, as a task order, help communities when it comes to grant writing, looking for opportunities for additional money from a state and federal level. That would be made available to all our members. We should have more from that here, I think, in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Number 9 is a Clean Ohio funding for stream bank improvements. This is one we've been working with Clean Ohio through the NRAD. I know there's an application submitted for Struthers, from Struthers, that would look to improve the stream banks when the dams are removed. We're hoping that can get funded as we move forward. There might be opportunities to continue that investment. You're going to hear some of that as the second part of this general policy board today. Shannon speaks about their findings on the Mahoning River, but we're continuing to look for opportunities to invest in that river and clean up the river banks. Number 12, I just, again, continue to keep moving down the list, but that ties into the Ysu Recovery Grant that they received in the pursuit of the Regional Economic Diversification Summit, and some of the work streams. Like I said, some of those findings will be coming out here in early spring, but it focuses on those 5 areas: strategic management, reuse and redevelopment, workforce and industry assets, mitigation of unemployment impacts, and business development. Through that summit, we were able to make a lot more contacts with some of the federal agencies. EDA has been certainly a strong partner as we move through this effort, and we're going to look for additional investment to make a difference when we try to attempt to diversify the economy in this region. Number 13 is the Voltage Valley, which has been coined that title. That builds on the Lordstown build, the smart logistics hub that we were attempting to attract additional money last spring. Unfortunately, like I said, didn't go through, but we're continuing those efforts as we move forward. Number 14 ties into those efforts where we're putting in this week for an Odot statewide planning and research grant that would free up $500,000, hopefully, to continue the effort to plan for the electrification, automation, logistics of that region. And that's capitalizing on, again, like I said, that investment that we have out there at the Lordstown Motors, at the LG Chem plant, subsequent supply chain companies that can come out there, logistics when it comes to TJX, recognizing that the turnpikes sits right next door to all those investments. They have 240 miles of fiber in the ground. We're working with all our partners there. That, like I said, the statewide planning grant, we got the support of District 4 to move forward on that, and we hope to hear something from that late spring, early summer, and begin the planning efforts, amp up the planning efforts for that development. Number 15 focuses on Lake to River Pipeline. That's an effort, initiative being led by the Chamber. Eastgate's a partner at the table with them, again, to establish a pipeline, 100-mile pipeline from Lake Erie down, from Deepwater Port, Lake Erie down through Youngstown to southern counties along the Ohio River, to move product back and forth. Right now it sits at the governor's desk, a feasibility study looking for funding for $1 million to get that study, and then it gives to the industry to move forward. And a lot that focuses on the ability to utilize the state right away along State Route 11. More to come there. Number 60, I talked about communities of excellence. We begin our second year in the journey. I'm going to jump down to number 22, GIS mapping. We're having a meeting just right after this general policy meeting internally and a presentation from a consultant to continue to build the framework of the two counties, Mahoning and Trumbull County, working together with their GIS arms, and to populate and grow that initiative. We hope to be able to do some of that work internal, but we can certainly use somebody to come in and show the framework and how we can all work together, the two counties in Eastgate. More to come there. Number 24 is building on the broadband feasibility study that's underway right now with Ice Miller. I know many of you on the call are part of that team that listens to the bi-weekly updates. Very excited about some of the projects they're defining. We're doing findings here, I think, in the spring, and it really is the hope there is to be able to turn that into projects and be able to implement those projects. When it comes to broadband investment, it's clear to us that you better have a plan, you better have projects laid out, and I believe you could attract funding. Without some kind of substantial plan, some substantial direction, if your communities aren't working together, it's going to be very difficult to attract that investment. So we hope to be able to share that here in the springtime. And the last thing in 2021 that we just found out about a week or so ago was that GM is investing $2.5 million in Eastgate to further some of the initiatives that can come out of the Voltage Valley. That was part of, I know many has heard the talk of GM that got tax abatements to have the Lordstown plant open until 2025 and it shut down. There's a payback or money due back. GM agreed to reinvest in the area. They were looking at a $12 million investment. Back in November, Eastgate submitted a summary of what we could do with a portion of money if it was directed to our agency. We were very fortunate and excited to be able to carry some of our ideas forward. They liked our direction, liked our initiatives. We'll be looking to invest that down the road. That money don't become available. It hasn't been laid out. It has up until the end of 2022. We're supposed to talk to GM later this week to get more direction and clarification of that type of funding source. But really, we want to utilize that investment to leverage additional investment, possibly with EDA, maybe with the USDOT. And that our thought process would be taking off after we had some type of planning study put together. Then this board be an implementation of projects, get the ball rolling as we continue to build out that initiative in the Lordstown area. So a lot said there with what we're trying to do. Again, I have to say that these are initiatives that we're tackling, challenges that we're chasing as we move into the new year, in addition to what we do on a day-to-day basis. And again, I have to compliment the staff for their efforts to chase these initiatives, to be involved in the opportunity to make a difference. Last thing I just want to touch on, sort of more out there a little bit with some of our projects, but we do keep that, and these sort of fall into that long-range plan, some longer than others, but conceptual projects that we're taking a peek at here in 2021. Mahoning Avenue, Lipke Road, we're analyzing if that's where, if there's an opportunity to tax safety money against some of the actions they've had out there. We certainly have always had our eye on Trumbull 80, 62 interchange over there in Hubbard. Mahoning 68 Shirley Road's been talked about, and two other interchanges that are just on the radar. All these initiatives lack funding at this time, lack funding even moving forward. There's two interchanges, possibly a new interchange at 80s 304 and State Road 11 with Niles Manor Road. Again, all these projects outside of number one, Mahoning and Lipke, are sort of in a holding pattern, lack funding. For new interchanges, certainly lack private investment, but they are on a radar, and if something should become available down the road, we'd explore those opportunities. So with that, I think that gave an update and sort of, I hope I cleared the direction of where we're going as an agency. We're excited. We enjoy, I certainly do, and I know our staff does enjoy chasing these. When we can certainly attract additional funding and bring it back to the area, it certainly makes a difference. So thank you for listening. If anybody has any questions, I'll gladly take them now. If you need specific information on anything I've mentioned here or you see on the reports later, please contact me direct and I can certainly provide more details. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim on the director's report? Okay, so welcome to Shannon Fergus from MS Consultants, who will be discussing the Mahoning River Corridor Revitalization Plan. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Oh, should I just do it? Okay. Sorry, I'm moving over. Perfect, thank you. Right, thank you for having me today and for talking about this project. It's been a very exciting project for myself and MS and our planning team. Like Jim said, we're going to be talking Mahoning River Corridor Revitalization Plan. You can always find more information about it on mymahoningliver.com. I hope you all visit that website after this presentation. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of the project team. It's a pretty large project team working on this project. Go over the vision for the plan, the scope and schedule, the deliverables, the key findings we've had thus far in our process, and then our next steps. So for introductions, I'm Shannon Fergus. I'm an urban planner out of MS Consultants Columbus office. However, I spend a lot of my time here in Youngstown. Pre-COVID, I was here every week, hoping I will start coming here every week again. On our team is actually made up of multiple sub-consultants. NVBJ, who is an award-winning architecture and landscape architecture firm, internationally recognized, is helping us with the visioning and landscape architecture for the project. And then we also have ECO, which is a local women-owned business, helping us with our public engagement. I'm going to skip this MS Consultants overview slide. I meant to take it out. I'm sure all of you know MS Consultants. We're born and bred here in Youngstown. And I will just kind of skip right to the vision of this plan. So the purpose of this plan, as obviously in the news, I know it's been reported on that the purpose is to talk about dam removal, but this plan is really looking at the river, what happens when those dams come out, if they come out. So the purpose of the plan is to bring collective economic opportunities and shared prosperity to the river valley through connecting our communities, protecting wild spaces, and preserving our legacy. So I'm going to kind of go through what the plan is going to cover for those last three things I mentioned. So the connection, the protection, and the prosperity. A big thing we want to do with the river, you see in this picture here, this is what we hope is on one side or another of the river from Lowellville all the way to Foster Park. That's the vision, is we would like a blueway where people can kayak from one end to the other. Through both counties, as well as a bikeway and multi-use path. That's a big dream. It exists in some places, but this is kind of a 20-year plan, so that's where we're at. And obviously along the river will be multiple water activities. We also want to protect our wildlife and water. A lot of the industries in Youngstown, which are still active, really made Youngstown what they are, and we continue to rely on them for our economic prosperity. But they have, done some damage to the riparian zone and the biodiversity of the river. So removing those dams is really going to help that. And this plan is going to kind of part educate and part talk about how that's going to happen. Also going to talk about the importance of the water quality while also maintaining supply for the industries that we know are still operating on the river and that we want to continue to operate on the river. Which really brings me into the prosper and economy. A big part of the plan is going to be talking about ecotourism, especially now in COVID. It has never been more clear that Americans are getting outside, out and about in their community, and it's important to provide opportunities for folks to bike and kayak and do all those things. We don't want folks in the valley to leave the valley and go down to Mohican Park or Hocking Hills. We want to be able to provide those same services here in the valley and attract people throughout the region to the valley. We also want to continue to support the industry that's happening, and there's still cleaned up sites that we can still attract light industrial uses to. And we want to use our river to create mixed use districts like you see here. A great example right now of this is Lowellville. is kind of ahead of the curve and is already kind of taking on this mixed use district idea on the river. So we're really using that and thinking about how we can do that in every community. I'm going to get into a little bit more details with scope and schedule. So the scope of this plan, as I said, is 2 counties. It's Mahoning and Trumbull County, and it covers 13 communities down from Newton Township, where Foster Park is, all the way through Lowellville. The schedule, we kicked off in July. This does include, as I'm sure folks have seen, a lot of water modeling for dam removal, and that's been the crux, the big focus of the first 6 months of this plan was really on performing those models. Those models are almost complete. We should probably see them in early spring, and they will cover both of the dams in Warren as well as the Leavittsburg Dam, and that's going to be released. And what that model does is tell us, one, what the water levels will be if the dams are removed, and then 2, any mitigation that might need to happen to ensure that folks who rely on those water levels are able to continue relying on water from the river. As you can see, we're kind of here in January. Before Christmas, we really kind of re-kicked off the planning part of this process, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We met with community leaders in each community. We also had a few large stakeholder groups. I'm sure many of you on the call hopefully were a part of one meeting or another on this plan, and if not, I definitely encourage you to get involved. The idea is that over the next few months, we're going to be finalizing some recommendations so that in June, we kind of have a final plan for Jim and the rest of the Eastgate staff to take along and try to get more funding based on that plan. That's really the point of this, is to create the vision and then find the funds to implement that vision. Another thing we're doing for the river, I just talked about the headgrass modeling, which is the water analysis, but we also used a local company, which was amazing. If anyone needs recommendations on drones here in the Valley, I now have one, to fly the entire river. And we're going to be creating, using the materials we create throughout this planning process. There will be about a 2-minute kind of tourism marketing video created at the end of this. I was going to play you a sample video to kind of show you what we were thinking from another part of the country, but I realized that would probably take a little bit too much time, so I'm not playing one for you, but that's something to look forward to. So the deliverables on this project, I talked about the vision and the schedule. The deliverables are really twofold. We're going to end up with a corridor-wide vision. It's going to have existing conditions, talk about repairing and health, talk about this regional gateway, talk about connecting the river through launch sites and economic development opportunities. And that's kind of the big picture. But then each community is going to have its own community implementation plan, which is really the local application of these larger corridor-wide objectives. It's going to have very site-specific recommendations. Each community is going to have a site that we study in detail and actually create a design for with renderings and whatnot. Those are currently being worked on right now. And then we are also going to note secondary sites that maybe we don't do renderings for, but that we think should also be concentrated on in that community to further the vision. And then the largest part of it is really going to be talking about the implementation of what each community can individually do to achieve the corridor-wide vision in their own community. And that really gets into funding and things like that. So I'm going to go through key findings. Like I said, right before Christmas, we had meetings every day, talking to different folks. We started with, existing conditions where we noted existing launches, recurrent river accesses, existing bikeways, and basically all the existing conditions in the plan. That's what you see here. And then we really, we took that and we highlighted areas that we thought were interesting. And we used a tool called Mural, where we did virtual shredding with folks, which you see in these images here. We had 5 community leader meetings in which we met each leaders from all 13 communities were kind of bunched together. And we met with, the mayors and other elected officials as well as their staff. We had 3 stakeholder meetings. We did economic development stakeholders, recreation stakeholders, and then Trumbull County Planning Commission, Nick Coggins, was nice enough to do his own little meeting with us just because of so much going on in Trumbull County. And then based off of that, we had over 6 follow-up meetings with folks who attended those meetings and had more information to share. So we really feel, actually, Joanne was saying to me right before this meeting started, while it was really sad to have to do all of this engagement virtually, I really feel that we got potentially more information than we would have gotten doing this in person. So I really appreciate anyone who was on the call and attended those meetings, appreciated your input, and hope that we take that input and give you, back a product that you enjoy. Another thing that I want to point out is public engagement. Obviously, during COVID, it was very hard to meet with the community. We were not really able to do any community gathering. Our plan had been a lofty one, which was all summer we were going to hit every community festival, River Fest, and be out and about and educating folks about the plan and getting their feedback. And obviously, none of that was able to happen. So what ECO did, which was a great partner for us, set up an online survey, an online mapping tool on the website to help us get feedback. This right here is a screenshot of some of the feedback we've gotten. We've had 830 unique visitors provide feedback so far. This is going to be open for about another month. So all of you who are out there who have not done so far, if you could push folks to our website, mymahoningriver.com. I'm sure I'm going to say this. You can email Joanne or Stephanie or Mark at Eastgate, and they can provide you that information. But even if your community is not on the river, your community members will hopefully do and hopefully will in the future enjoy the river. And so we want to hear everyone's feedback because this is really the only way to get public engagement right now. So it's critically important that as many citizens participate as possible. So far, the highest priorities for folks that we've seen are waterfront access and bike trail connections. People really want to, get on their bikes and see the water at the same time and be able to, do it from one end to the other. The lowest priorities are green technology and industry. That's typically, what's funny is when you talk to the business community, when I did the economic development stakeholder groups, those are the highest priorities from them. So I think that that's, the fact that your everyday citizens are more thinking about recreation. And then most folks, as we probably thought, use the river to observe nature, wildlife, or relax. So that's what we've heard so far. We're hoping to really up the amount of users we get to that survey. So mymahoningriver.com is where you can find both the survey and the mapping activity. So as I said, we're concentrating on priority implementation areas in each area, in each community. I didn't create a slide for each one because it's kind of still in the process and I want to, check back with all the community leaders and make sure we're on the right track first. But, in Newton Township, I'll give a few examples. Obviously, Foster Park is kind of the start of the scenic river and the Blue Way Trail. And so we really want to celebrate that and envision more things in Foster Park. And Newton Falls, they have 2 branches of the river, which is it's from an outsider going to Newton Falls and actually diving deep into all the different little parks they have in their neighborhoods along the river. It's really a beautiful area. They have a lot of interesting opportunities. Bracewell Township, the Oxbow Lakes area is very wet, but that means it could also be a great area to have camping sites, things like that, to really attract folks who maybe want to hike and hunt, maybe bring horses, things like that. In Leavittsburg, we're really concentrated on Canoe City, which is currently, where folks commercially kayak from. Warren, we're concentrated on their river district, which I know Trumbull County Planning Commission is helping them plan right now, and we'll be helping take that vision a step further in this plan. In Niles, they've got, you know, their bike trail, and we're trying to figure out how to connect that bike trail down to the river and work hand in hand with them on potential kayak launch. McDonald and Girard, you know, obviously have very strong industry in that area already, and that's a part of the river that we think we can continue to support industry. Youngstown, as we all know, we have the amphitheater has already been completed, but there's still a lot of space down there, and so there's going to be a lot of visioning about how Youngstown can continue to use the river for their prosperity. Struthers and Camel have Caslo in industry already happening on that river, so we're talking a little bit about how to bring recreation to those sites. And then Lowellville, which was the first dam to be removed this summer. If you have not gone out there, I strongly suggest you make a trip to Lowellville and look at that site. It's so exciting to see how fast the water is moving, how clear the water is, and beautiful shale rock formations were exposed. And I really think if I could get everyone to go to Lowellville and see what removing that dam did and what it looks like, people would get why we really think that we have all the bones we need for great recreational tourism here in the Mahoning Valley. So that's just kind of our priority implementation areas. And like I said, each community also has smaller areas that we're looking at. So I'm going to discuss real quick our next steps on this plan. We're going to be, this right here actually is Kim Way with NDBJ. We kayaked the river in July at the beginning of this project. So we got to see lots of wildlife and whatnot. But our next steps are we're going to have some follow-up stakeholder meetings based on, you know, we got all those findings before Christmas, and now we're really taking pen to paper. We want to follow up once we've done that with a draft of what we're thinking. We're going to meet with community leaders again and say, hey, this is what we heard. This is what we're thinking. Final HECRES results will be released in early spring. There will be a draft plan and draft renderings and then a marketing video. And hopefully, you know, I hope even on my personal time to, you know, maybe this summer, if, you know, events can start happening, that we'll be able to go to some of those festivals and show off what we've done and show the community that we're really ready to move forward on this vision for the Mahoning River. So, hopefully I didn't go too fast. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Are there any questions for Shannon regarding the Mahoning River Plan, Revitalization Plan?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Samantha Yanucci. I'm just curious how, Shannon, if you could speak a little bit to how the communities in Youngstown particularly are being engaged, particularly the underserved neighborhoods, like those living on the south side and, you know, near the park that would have close access to the river. How are they being engaged? Like people who aren't typically at the table.
Yes, thank you for that question. So the way that we are, ECO is unfortunately not on the call, and that's kind of part of their scope. But what was going to be happening was obviously in-person engagement in that part of the community. Right now, what we are doing is we're trying to do bill stuffers and things like that to get people to the website. We've also talked about posting some of these surveys at community locations on paper and then collecting them later. So we're still kind of working through that over the next month because I know, you know, folks in those areas might not have great internet access, and so we want to make sure that they are still heard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. I was just thinking of the Eastgate Long Range Plan that I think it was from 2010 or 2020, where we put together all sort of scenarios to connect the Great Ohio Lake River Greenway to the river route.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, you know, out loud, if you were aware of those plans that were already proposed over the last 21 years through this office?
Yes, for sure. So that's been a big part of, while our engineers were doing water modeling, we were researching a lot of, what had currently been planned, all those plans. Another thing that had happened that I failed to mention at the beginning of this is before we started this process, Eastgate worked with GPD to do an initial kind of land use plan. And they had also done a review, a lot of those plans, and had kind of compiled a lot of the bikeway connections from the past 20 years, the ideas on that into one recommendation. And we've been building off of that. But that's a big part of what we're trying to do, is ensure that all those planning efforts are kind of brought into one place finally, So yes, would love obviously to work with you, Julie, and make sure that that happens.
Thanks, Shannon. Any other questions for Shannon? Well, thank you. We appreciate your work on this. I know it's challenging. Did you have anything else for Shannon?
No, thank you,
Okay.
Shannon.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update.
Appreciate you making the trip and hope to see you more in person. So right now, the next item on the agenda is resolutions for passage. There are none. So next item is open discussion. The staff will take questions or comments relevant to the agenda topics by email after the meeting. You can also use the chat window to type your question or comment, or raise your hand to enter the speaker queue. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Anything? Okay. All right, so do we make a motion for adjournment, or do we just adjourn?
You can just adjourn the meeting, Julie.
Okay, so we can, if there weren't any other questions or comments, we're going to adjourn the meeting. The next meeting of the General Policy Board will be on April the 26th, 2021. Hopefully that one will be maybe in person, who knows?
We hope.
Depending on how fast the first 100 days in the rollout goes, so. Okay, well, nice to see everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
So Shannon, you set up another